The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.
Hi, good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Minority Report. I'm Ireland David, your host, and as per usual, it is indeed a pleasure coming into your homes, getting the conversations going and for us to really dig into a lot of what is happening and has been happening in Tobago and by extension Trinidad and Tobago. A lot has been going on, and as we speak, and I'm certain many of you would have been participating in this entire process in terms of viewing. We are in the middle of Tobago's quote-unquote budget session. Yesterday we saw this year's budget estimates read by the Secretary of Finance, and quite interesting that presentation, but we're going to be going more into that as the coming weeks unfold as a minority, and we're going to be addressing certain things. But stay tuned for Thursday, where we actually have the budget debate, where the minority gets the opportunity to chime in and speak to the budget presentation. So that is definitely in the air. And it's something that we all want to be a part of that conversation. So if you are looking at the program tonight and you're interested in bringing other persons into the viewership, you can see this program on the Tobago Updates website. If you have your computer, you go in, you type in www.tobagoupdates.com and you're going to get the website. If you are a YouTuber, you can pull up the Tobago Updates YouTube channel and was on that particular channel live. If it's a Facebook, you can type in and pull up the Facebook page, Tobago Updates Facebook page. This platform gives you the opportunity to actually interact a bit with us in terms of making your live comments, in terms of having the opportunity to engage other persons on the live as well. So if that is what you're looking for, you can just simply pull up the Tobago Updates Facebook page and we begin that level of interaction. If you are a Flow subscriber, good news, great news is that we have two actual channels on Flow that we are connected to. You can type in channel 121 HUB TV, that's channel 121 Hub TV, or you can also log in or pull up channel 130 AVS, that's channel 130. So channels 121 and channel 130, those two channels you can log into if you are a Flow subscriber, and you can view the program live as well. If you are, however, an AMPLIA subscriber, a number of providers here now in Tobago. If you're an AMPLIA subscriber, it's even easier. You just put in your channel 102 and you can view not just the Minority Report on AMPLIA, but you can view all of the programming, 24-hour programming coming out of Tobago Updates Network on channel 102 on the AMPLIA network. If you have information, you have a photograph, you have a video, you want to make a comment, share something with us, you can do that by sending a WhatsApp message to 284-6597. That's 284-6597. Feel free to share whatever information you are guaranteed that there is going to be a certain amount of anonymity it's going to be treated with. And at that juncture, I want to encourage and thank at the same time many of you who have consistently supported the Office of the Minority Leader with sharing information, whether it be by phone call, whether it be by dropping off at the office and coming in for us to have a discussion, or even in many instances by an anonymous letter being dropped off at the office, pushed in under the front door sometimes, and bringing information to the forefront. There is nothing that we can do effectively if we do not have your participation and your being part of the conversation or part of the job within which we seek to execute. So I want to thank those of you who have been consistently supporting the minority by assisting, whether anonymously or not, by giving information and coming in and really sharing. It shows that there is a general care, concern, and love for the affairs of Tobago coming from the wider population. So if you want, you can send that information, send whatever you have to 846-597. I want to take the opportunity to briefly treat with this particular matter. We want to congratulate the political leader designator of the People's National Movement, the Honorable Penelope Beckles Robinson, and her team, the 1PNM team, on their recent victory in the recently conducted internal elections. We want to congratulate as well all the members of the PNM who would have put themselves forward for the various positions, vying for different positions on the executive of the party, as the party engages in its next chapter of rebuilding and so to speak, to reorganizing, recalibrating, as the case may be, under the vigilant, I should say, leadership of the now new or newly minted political leader. And I mean, we're looking forward to great things. We're looking forward to a lot coming out of the political leader and a team as they navigate the waters whilst in opposition to bring this party, this great party, back to a place of prominence. So congratulations to every single individual who would have taken the time to participate in the process. And for those who have been successful, thank you, Mr. Director, for pulling up the final sheet in terms of the information that is out there. The successful individuals who now would form the executive of the People's National Movement. Congratulations to each and every one of them. You know, tonight, before we get into the real conversations, and there are some things that I want to do tonight that we're going to take in stages, with the first stage actually beginning right here tonight on the program and continuing next week, Tuesday. Before we actually get into that aspect of it, I want to take just a minute or so. I'm not sure, but this month, the month of June, has been dubbed Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And this is not something that is specific to Trinidad and Tobago, but it's the global recognition of mental health with respect to our men. And just for the sake of touching on this issue, it's a time dedicated to raising awareness about the unique mental health challenges men face and encouraging them to seek help and support. It's a period to highlight the importance of conversations about mental health, reduce the stigma, and to promote resources for men's well-being. Now, this is just an excerpt, as it were, of what has come out of the governing body with respect to the rationale and what are the expectations coming out of this month. But to really send this point home, I want to just share very briefly some information with respect to the statistics that have now been linked to this particular topic. And we know that coming out of a number of challenges and so on, these statistics, I mean, they're startling when I saw them, but I want to share with us so that we all seem to understand the necessity for a time like this. 2,000 men around the world commit suicide daily. 2,000 men commit suicide every single day. And this is information that is based on statistics that would have been gathered. 14,000 men commit suicide every week around the world. 68,000 men commit suicide every month. And a total of 600,000 men commit suicide every single year. 600,000 men commit suicide every year. And these are global figures. Now, if my last check was that we had a global population of about just over 8 billion. 8 billion persons residing on planet Earth. And a figure of 600,000 almost represents 10% of the world's population. 600,000 represents almost 10% of the world's population. So what this is saying is that almost 10% of the world's population in the category of only men commit suicide every single year. That is a startling reality that I think each one of us should definitely experience some level of change. And it is something that has now caught the attention of many of the governing bodies, especially those health-related bodies that speak specifically to mental health. And so there are different rationales now put out and what they expect to achieve. One of those is increased awareness coming out of this month. Men are less likely to seek help for mental health issues and often struggle in silence. This month of June provides a platform to address this, encouraging open conversations and reducing the stigma. What stigma they're speaking about? The stigma of men feeling free to come out and speak about the challenges they're facing. It's also designed to addressing unique challenges because men face specific pressures related to, and this is very interesting, societal expectations of masculinity, which can hinder their willingness to address their own mental health concerns. Thirdly, this month is geared towards promoting resources. Men's Mental Health Awareness Month also serves as a reminder of the available resources, including support groups, counseling services, and mental health professionals. So it's designed to create greater awareness that there are resources available to men interested in actually stepping forward. And even in some cases, just simply having a conversation. It's also geared towards encouraging action. And I like this one. Individuals are encouraged to check in on men in their lives, share resources, and create safe spaces for open communication. And finally, overall well-being. By prioritizing men's mental health, men can improve their overall well-being and lead happier, more fulfilling lives. And I think that this is the icing on the cake, because if we can achieve this, where men are given the opportunity to lead happier and more fulfilling lives, then I think that that figure that we saw earlier, that figure of 600,000, oh Lord, 600,000, I think that that figure would be greatly reduced in terms of the men that continue to take their own lives because of the inability to treat with the challenges that they face daily. So I want to take this opportunity to really encourage those of us right here in Tobago to be an active participant of this process, to be an active participant in terms of the engagement in Men's Mental Health Month, and not just end there. Let it become a practice. And I'm speaking men mental health because this month is specific to that. But mental health in general for all persons is absolutely necessary for us to be able to live and lead happier lifestyles. And so I want to encourage families, I want to encourage even the entities that exist, the Division of Health. I know they would have had a day where they would have done something, but I want to impress on us that much more should be done. Much more can be done. Coming out of the division, I trust that we would see going forward more initiatives in various communities where we have challenges with men's mental health, which is reflected sometimes in the type of crimes that exist in those areas. I want to encourage churches, all faith-based organizations, all community-based organizations, even the sporting organizations, cultural organizations, NGOs on a whole, to really put forward some extra effort, especially during this time, to ensure that some of these objectives can be achieved in your very operations, so that we all collectively can do more to achieve the objectives, and God help us to reduce the tally where 2,000 men don't see the need to kill themselves every day, where 14,000 men don't see the need to kill themselves every week, 68,000 men don't see the need to kill themselves every month, and 600,000 men do not see the need to take their own lives every single year. So I want to encourage us this evening, very, very sobering issue. Let's really be our brother's keeper. And check in on a male, check in on a man, check in on your son, your daughter as well. But check in on men and boys. And let's make sure that mentally they are okay. And if they are not, let's help provide that safe space so that we all can live and lead a happier life. This evening, I want us to shift gears. We want to treat with one particular issue first with respect to sharing some information with us here in Tobago especially, so that we can hear and be a part of what is happening, what is taking place even in the Parliament. And I want to, coming out of that, highlight a particular newspaper article that has been corrected, and then we're going to go into some other information. So I'll ask the director to let's run that clip coming out of the recent Parliament sitting, where we would have had the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West doing part of a very, very important presentation. So, Mr. Director, could you run that clip, please?
Some things being proposed that need to be highlighted because they are failures. Let me begin by addressing the member for Tobago West. Member for Tobago West, I tell you, watch your friends that you keep. The people that you are calling your friends today did not know where the main ridge was in 2022. And they spoke out against the former finance minister, the member for Diego Martin Northeast, when he came in this very house and advocated in 2022 for cancer treatment for Tobago. I see the member for Oropouche East is not present. In 2020, the member for Oropouche East said this: I believe the member for Diego Martin Northeast must explain to the country how could it be that Tobago, with a population of 60,000 people, is given over $2 billion, while regional... So whilst the member for Tobago West comes here and talks about the percentages for Tobago, the very side he sits on does not support his ideologies for the island of Tobago. It must be noted that Tobago House of Assembly got the largest allocations under the PNM, and that is separate from a loan financing for other development projects conducted by central government as well. In addition, the PNM in this Parliament approved for the THA for the first time in our history the ability to borrow from international lending agencies to the tune of $300 million. The UNC gave Tobago a mere $32 million from the consolidated fund, and again trying to fool the people of Tobago by adding a loan not yet received by the country to the THA. And I'll tell you about that loan very soon. Mr. Speaker, the government claims that the previous PNM Minister of Finance allocated only $2.6 billion to the THA for fiscal 2025, a figure based on the DRC formula. And now for the supplementation, less than 1% is what Tobago gets Tobago West. So in your retort, please understand that those you are standing by do not stand by you. Now let's talk about the loan from CAF for coastal protection projects in Tobago, which was negotiated by the member for Diego Martin Northeast several years ago. It was based on a list of projects identified by the last PNM administration for the THA. Now the story of the loan is this. Shortly after the loan was approved, the administration changed, and the now Chief Secretary, the Honorable Member for Diego Martin Northeast, out of respect for the change in leadership, wrote to him and asked them to identify their own list of projects. They failed to do so. And as a Minister of Finance that cares about Tobago and cares about Trinidad and Tobago, he had to seek an extension of time from CAF for the disbursement of the loan in a letter to CAF dated April 7th, 2023. The former Minister of Finance then sent a team to Tobago over a year ago in an attempt to get the new THA to make up its mind and finalize its list of coastal projects. Up to April 20th, 2023, they fail and they fail and they fail and they fail again. Since the new list of projects has to be scoped and tendered, this loan that they speak about, Mr. Speaker, there is no way this can be implemented in the 3 months remaining in 2025 fiscal. So once again, in this mid-year supplementation, they are being fictitious, mendacious, and trying to fool the people of Tobago. And for the people of Tobago, I quote an Express 2022 article, which stated, take time and listen, Baratarius Hour. 3 Trinidad-based contractors received close to $100 million in roadwork contracts from the THA under the leadership of the current Chief Secretary. And you know who's in the picture, Mr. Speaker? The Honorable Member for Tobago West. Now, let's make it abundantly clear. Let's make it abundantly clear. While the greatest THA allocation has been given under the People's National Movement, a list of projects are there. The ANR Airport expansion, Sherburne Police Station, Roxborough Police Station, Roxborough Fire Station, Roxborough Admin Complex, 2 new ferries, a cargo boat, Hillsborough Dam, street lighting projects, wastewater treatment plant in Canaan Bonaccord, booster stations. And listen, Mr. Speaker, I won't read the entire book, but there's an entire list of projects done by WASA. Also, solar lighting for the main ridge, the place they didn't know existed. Funding for businesses through NEDCO, Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Trade. Member for Tobago West, I hope you know who your friends are. Be very careful.
Yes, folks. So I know that that was a very, very informative clip coming, their presentation from the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, the Honorable Hans de Veens. But I think that to put it into context, I want to highlight the fact that last week we would have seen a very misleading article printed by the Guardian newspaper, which indicated something to the tune of $236 million being allocated to Tobago, and because of how quickly, I must say, the minority leader would have acted in this case, because one of the things that we definitely stand against is misinformation that misleads the general public. And I would reiterate that everything that is said on this program, everything that comes out of the office of the minority leader is information that has been validated. It is factual. It can be represented by way of a paper trail. So we don't speak by guess. So this article would have been printed, and in quick time, the minority leader would have addressed it by way of official press release. And we saw the article retracted by the Guardian media, and the correct information was then posted as the new article, and that new article headlined by saying Tobago gets an additional 134 million for 2025. Now, let me say this, and let me make it clear. Even with that particular headline, there is great ambiguity, because it gives the impression that the mid-year review, in terms of that mid-year allocation that Tobago is now getting, is to the tune of $134 million. However, when you read into the article, you will then see, and I want to put this into context for us, that Tobago will receive an additional 32 million in supplemental funding for 2025. That is the allocation, the mid-year review allocation that is coming to Tobago. Now, let me put that particular, just that part in context. That 32 million represents that mid-year review, and this is what the government is now giving to Tobago. Let me remind you that last year, that mid-year allocation was 50 million that we received from a PNM-led central government. Let me also remind you that in the year before that, that mid-year review allocation was $100 million. So what we are receiving this year by way of $32 million is significantly less than what the previous government would have allocated to Tobago in its mid-year review. And interestingly, and that's why I'm saying the article was misleading, the other $102 million that was just grouped with the $32 million does not represent an allocation to Tobago. That represents a CAF loan. And I'm certain that we would have heard that reiterated in that particular clip from the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, giving clarity to his colleagues in the House. That is not the mid-year review allocation. So let us be crystal clear. What Tobago has been allocated in its mid-year review is $32 million, $18 million less than what the PNM-led central government allocated to the THA last year. Now, what we would have seen in all those times is that the THA administration, the present administration, would have been ranting and raving when they would have gotten 100 million and 50 million, claiming that that allocation for the mid-year review was not sufficient. So we are now seeing that the allocation has decreased significantly to 32 million. And let us understand that the $102 million is a loan. It is not an allocation. people. It is a loan, a CAF loan, that based on information shared, you'd realize that it is not even the current central government administration that would have laid the foundation and negotiated for that loan, because the PNM is the PNM-led government who would have given Tobago the ability to go ahead and borrow up to the tune of 300 million. So that loan was negotiated by the former Minister of Finance. And so what we are seeing now is that the present administration are simply finalizing that and giving Tobago the opportunity to get that 102 million CAF loan that we have to pay back. However, the allocation, the mid-year review allocation is only 32 million. Only 32 million. Significantly less than what was allocated to Tobago as recent as last year, with the last year allocation being a full $50 million in the mid-year review. So I wanted us to be able to understand and put that into perspective. And thanks, Mr. Director, for pulling up this particular information. So we see the 100 million 2023, we see 2024, 50 million, and we see the UNC-led central government now starting at $32 million allocating. So Tobago, we have not won. We have not won. Based on the allocation in the mid-year review, Tobago has not won. So that it is important for us to understand. Again, thanks for the diagram sharing, showing that what we used to receive before was 4.35%. And what we're seeing now is 4.18%. So people, let us be aware, let us be vigilant, let us not become caught up in the euphoria, but let's focus on what the facts are. We will continue to share and present the facts. So Tobago didn't win in this mid-year review because Tobago has lost significantly. Thank you for Mr. Director for sharing that information as well. So coming out of that, last week we got to a place where after 2 weeks of ventilating, not last week, sorry, the week before, ventilating information with respect to the issue of the ambulance purchases out of the Division of Health. And a number of persons totally shocked, fiberglass, blown away. And this matter attracting attention now, currently, from a number of state entities. Information has come to hand, yet again as recent as today, that we are preparing and putting together to bring back to you the public. But I want us to go into a short press conference where the foundation that was laid in that press conference is going to make the way to remind us where we are in this particular process. And it is going to definitely lay the path for what comes next. And trust me, the information that is going to come next is damning, to say the least. And we trust that those who stand in positions of authority are ready to take responsibility for what is going to be shared. So I'll ask Mr. Director, take us back to that press conference so that we can have the information that was shared then as a reminder tonight, as a foundation for what comes next. Mr. Director.
2 stories before I start and get to the substantive matter. And one of those stories I would share is an encounter I had at the gas station yesterday. While approaching the gas station, while going to purchase fuel, a gentleman came up to me, and the gentleman was extremely happy to see me, thanking me for an action I took with respect to an assistance he got with employment. And you know, the gentleman reminded me, because of course as an assemblyman you deal with a number of people, and I could not recall the specific encounter. But he was saying to me that whereas one of the opportunities recommended, he was unsuccessful, there was another opportunity that I recommended and he was successful. And he was extremely grateful. And this was a job that, some of us would take for granted. But what dawned on me at that moment was the fact that this young man was so happy for the opportunity to put food on the table of his family. And that for which we may take for granted, there are persons in this island that are really struggling and just waiting for an opportunity. And that reminded me that every single cent that we are entrusted with as public officials, we should and ought to ensure that those funds are managed prudently. The next incident I would share with you is one where a resident of mine at the hospital related to me a story where, in waiting to be administered for care, she could not help but notice someone taking to the hospital a kettle. And when they ask the person, where are you going with this kettle? They say, well, there's no hot water. So they have their father admitted and they are going to carry this hot water to bathe their parent. So that tells me that even within the health system, there are current challenges that requires resources. And while we are faced with significant challenges and resource shortfall in the health system at this time, there are many matters that demonstrates a lack of prudent management of the very scarce resources. Today I can tell you the Tobago Regional Health Authority, without fear of contradiction, is a graveyard ripe with corruption. Ripe with corruption. And while there are many matters that will be coming to the fore within the next couple weeks and months, there is one matter I would like to treat with today. And that matter is a matter I raised very early, and it perhaps during the election and the electioneering it got lost. But today I stand as your minority leader, and not just as your minority leader, but as a Tobagonian, son of the soil, who would not sit silently while millions of dollars are spirited away and unanswered for. Today, I want to go through chronologically the whole issue of the purchase and procurement of these ambulances so that Tobagonians can have an appreciation for how we got here. What I'm about to say and what I will reveal here today is not simply hearsay, it's not political spin, but it's cold hard facts. This is nothing short of Ambulance Gate. Ambulance Gate. A brazen, unapologetic scandal that now stands as the greatest procurement betrayal in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly. You will recall in 2023, July to be specific, The Tobago Regional Health Authority awarded a contract for ambulances under tender number PMT 01-2022. That contract awarded at that time was valued at $5.535 million, $5,535,000, and it was awarded to a company called Biomedical Technologies Limited. I want you to stay with me. So in 2023, contract awarded $5.535 million. At that time, the approved make and model of the vehicle awarded was the Isuzu model. And as you know, we all are familiar in Tobago with the Isuzu brand. Many of us have vans, trucks, etc., that are of the Isuzu, and we can vouch and speak to the quality of that vehicle. We can speak to the veracity of it and how it functions. Right? This is very known to us. It is a robust and properly suited for a mountainous terrain in Tobago. This, as folks perhaps at that time thought, would have been a transparent, clean-cut process, and therefore by now we should have, ought to have, 12 functional brand new ambulance in the system in Tobago. So we thought. But what actually happened? What actually happened? During the budget debate of 2024, the Chief Secretary stated that they would procure and commission 10 ambulances for use by the Tobago Emergency Medical Services Department at an estimated cost of $12 million. So stay with me. Award started in 2023, July, $5.535 million. And this is our Chief Secretary in his budget statement announcing to Tobagonians that the new estimated figure for the procurement of 10 ambulances was estimated at $12 million. So that was in around June of 2024. We waited because we were told we are supposed to get brand new ambulances. When we did not see any, around October, Councillor Petal Daniel Benwa asked the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Social Protection 2 questions. What is the status of the procurement of the new ambulances that we were told would be delivered by the end of September? So we were promised, you the people of Tobago, were promised that these ambulances will be delivered by 30th September 2024. When we did not see that, as a responsible minority, we asked the question, what is the status of the procurement and what is the total expenditure expected to be incurred for both purchasing? And you will recall at the same time, it is important to note, while we waited on these ambulances, the TRHA continued to lease ambulances to the tune of over $300,000 per month. My information is, based on the period 2023 to present, we have now spent over $5 million leasing 4 ambulances. It has been reduced to 2, but the overall cost, now I want you to put that into context, that the original award for the purchase of the ambulances, 12 ambulances, was $5.535 million. We have spent in just leasing 4 ambulances almost the exact figure that it was awarded to purchase. I want you to keep that into full view. So the question was asked, This is the Secretary's response. 4 ambulances have arrived in Trinidad, 3 in July and 1 in September 2024. They are currently being cleared and configured for use. They are being cleared and configured for use and currently awaiting approval from the Ministry of Health, consistent with the Emergency Ambulance Services and Emergency Medical Personnel Act Chapter 8 of 2009. It is estimated that the 4 ambulances will be operational in November because that process seems to be moving along as swiftly as it can. 8 additional ambulances have also been ordered and are being manufactured in the country of our origin, and they are estimated to come in soon. So that was the Secretary in October of 2024. And you would notice that she gave an assurance that those ambulances that were already in the country, those 4, will be operational in November of 2024. So, by January, we recognize, yes, we heard about some ambulance coming out. Of course, very early I raised concerns based on information that those ambulances were not fit for purpose and had a number of issues. So when we recognize the ambulances that we were promised to be in service were not in service, again in January I followed up with a question to the Secretary. So I asked her, 1, please tell us the cost per unit and the total expenditure to date for the procurement and the outfitting of the ambulances. And I also asked her, why are these ambulances not in operation at this time, and what is their current status in terms of readiness for deployment? She followed up by telling me, relating to the ambulances, the cost per unit is $1.295 million, plus an extended 3-year warranty and factory training, $88,750 per unit. There was an installation of GPS devices with an online access for the 4 ambulances at $9,400 total. Fabrication and installation of the side door of the 4 ambulances, $56,250. The supplier was paid. What you heard Tobagonians say? The supplier was paid a total of $8.035 million to date, and this represents approximately 50% of the total cost of $16.605 million for the 12 units that were ordered. And I want to pause for the cause. And because there were a number of follow-up questions, and one of which I would want to treat with. But I want to pause for the cause, because this is the first red flag in this arrangement. Why would you pay more than 50% for ambulances to which you only receive less than 50%? In other words, you are paying more, you are actually paying the supplier they are more than what you actually received. So the value of 4 ambulances, based on the price, $1.3 million, is basically about $5.6 or so million. Yet the TRHA would have made advance payments to this supplier when they did not even get all the ambulances that were supposed to be delivered. I don't know about you, but if you order something, and I want to ask the Tobagonians, if you order something, would you not wait until you receive it before you pay for it? In this instance, the TRHA made a substantial payment for ambulances that they themselves
had issues with that still had to be reconfigured, and even as we speak now, only one has been placed in rotation, and that one that was placed in rotation couldn't even go up the simplest sloping hill of Tobago, the John Dial Hill. Failed, couldn't power up. Yet we have paid already, and perhaps we have even paid more since that time. $8 million of the $16.65 million. And the question we all have to ask ourselves is why? But I'll get to that in a few. So, in this instance, where we learned that 50% of your money has already been paid on these ambulances that we are now seeing are not suitable, not fit for purpose, and in fact was not the approved, tendered model, make and model. We are also, so I tried to find out from the secretary. I asked her, given the number of modification and delivery, I was concerned. Apparently they weren't concerned, but I was concerned, and I wanted to know what was the procurement process to identify this supplier of a contract of the value of over $16 million. And your secretary response was, she said, again, the procurement process, so all of a sudden she doesn't know. The procurement process happened outside of my direct input. But procurement at the TRHA includes detailing of requirements of any service or item, sending out RFPs or RFQs, having the companies provide feedback, and then finally going to the board of directors for approval to go out to approve the contract for the particular service. And I assume that this is the process that was used in this one, since that is the normal process for procurement at the TRHA. So the secretary is saying to me that she washes her hands from this process. She, as the secretary, who by law, and the law is the THA Act is quite clear, both the THA Act and the Regional Health Authority Act, Chapter 2905, Section 5.2, clearly states that in the exercise of its powers and functions, the board of the Tobago Regional Health Authority is subject to the provision of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. So, it is basically saying that subject to this section of the Constitution, which is the THA Act, that says, Section 37(1), says, where a secretary is assigned a responsibility for a division of the Assembly, he or she shall exercise general direction and control over that division. Meaning, the secretary has general direction and control over the board of the TRHA, and that is further galvanized in Section 5.1 that says, subject to subsection 2, a board shall exercise its powers and functions in accordance with specific or general directions as may be given to it by the minister, and in this case for the Tobago Regional Health Authority, by the secretary. So what this is saying in plain and simple language is that the secretary cannot divorce herself from what happens at the Tobago Regional Health Authority, because the secretary is ultimately responsible for the general direction and control of the business of the Tobago Health Authority. So let me get back to some more of the facts. So these ambulances, as I provided the chronological order of how we got here, these ambulances were not delivered until October 2024. That is 15 months after the contract was awarded. Imagine that. You hire someone to deliver an item, and after 15 months, those items were not delivered, no actions were taken, and we all have to ask ourselves why. Because during those intervening months, you will remember, we had serious challenges with the supply of ambulances as a matter of 5.53 million to over 16 million. But then, because the ambulances that came into the country were not fit for purpose, it meant that the supplier had to go and do further adjustments. And in doing the further adjustments, that cost you, the taxpayer, further expenditure. So whereas the ambulance was originally 1.295 million, they had to make further adjustments that cost you an additional $244,000. And what is curious about that further $244,000 is that the brand that was delivered, Force Traveler, and I invite any Tobagonian to go on this website, just as how you would go on Hyundai if you wanted to purchase a Hyundai or a Toyota. Go on the website of Force Traveler and put in a request for that ambulance, and what you would recognize in terms of the price, when you do the conversion, the price for that very same Force ambulance at the highest end is about $232,000 TT dollars. So the cost to retrofit that we are paying to retrofit the ambulance is actually the cost that if you were paying for that ambulance and ordering it online, that will be the cost. So we are not even talking about the 1.295 that we will actually charge. Just the cost to retrofit the ambulances would have gotten you that ambulance online. So we are now paying, in addition to the $1.3 million, we have to, because the ambulance they brought in was not fit for purpose, pay an additional $244,000. So you must remember, as I said, because I want you all to follow me, the ambulances that arrived were not the ones that were tendered for, approved, or paid for. It was a completely different make and model that appeared. And what makes it even worse, there is no public record of variation of the contract, no retendering, or lawful approvals. This is not incompetence. This is not deception. This is nothing short of procurement fraud. And the procurement regulations are very clear in this matter, that in instances where a contract is to be varied or go out back for tender, there's a clear process. And in this instance, that process was not followed. So we must ask the questions: where was the oversight? And the answer lies in what I just explained to you regarding the responsibility of the secretary. The oversight responsibility ultimately rests with the Executive Council of the Tobago House of Assembly. Under the laws I just quoted, the Regional Health Authority Act, the TRHA board must, not maybe, they must seek Executive Council approval before authorizing major expenditures of this nature. If that approval was not sought, then the law was broken. If it was sought and given, then the Executive Council is in fact complicit in this deception. The Executive Council is not a rubber stamp. It is a guardian of your money. It is a guardian of the Treasury. And it has a legal and fiduciary responsibility to protect the public purse. And you know what is disappointing to me? Just recently, at the last sitting, I raised this matter as a matter of question directly to the Chief Secretary, asking the Chief Secretary, like the rest of us in Tobago, whether he was concerned that this cost ballooned from $5.53 million to $16 million. And you know what the Chief Secretary told me? Well, he don't have that information, so basically he doesn't see anything to be worried about, concerned about, or to be investigated. And this is the same Chief Secretary that took a rope and tied himself to Watson Duke and walked all across Tobago complaining about a zip line which at that time the total project cost was $4 million. And here it is, we have a situation where public funds is expended on a contract that started at $5.53 million, escalating upwards to $17 million, and your Chief Secretary is saying to you he is not concerned. So then we have to ask ourselves, what is the Chief Secretary's role and what is the role of the Executive Council in this total fiasco? Brothers and sisters, at this point in time, where do we go from here? Because clearly we have a situation on our hands that is vexatious, it is scandalous, it is obnoxious, and it is appalling, where public funds, limited, every time you talk, and I'm sure every one of you can vouch, every time the first thing that comes out of a secretary's mouth is to remind you, the fellow Tobagonians, that they are limited. They have limited funds. They don't have enough money. And here it is, a situation where somebody or bodies are allegedly colluding to misappropriate public funds. So as the minority leader, I will not stand by idly, because I understand the pain, I understand the suffering that many Tobagonians are experiencing at this time, because the THA just is not able to treat with their challenges. So on this matter, based on some evidence I have of impropriety and malfeasance, I have penned a letter to the Anti-Corruption Investigative Bureau, ACIB, and I've also CC'd our Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Junior Benjamin, requesting a criminal investigation into the TRHA ambulance procurement scandal, dubbed Ambulance Gate. And I'll read to you the contents of that letter so that you will have an appreciation for the issues that we are treating with some substantive evidence, information. Dear Director, I write to formally request an invitation into serious and potentially criminal irregularities surrounding the Tobago Regional Health Authority's procurement of ambulance under tender number PMT01 2022, awarded to Biomedical Technologies Limited. The key issues to be investigated: the cost escalation, the original contract awarded in July 2023 for $5.535 million, final costs reportedly exceeding $17 million with no clear justification or public variation. Substitution of vehicles. Ambulance delivered were not the make and model approved in the original contract. This represents a fundamental breach of procurement integrity and could constitute fraud or misrepresentation. Lack of executive approval. Allegations indicate that the TRHA board may have executed or varied the contract without obtaining executive council approval as identified by the secretary based on her response to the question which was uploaded, contrary to requirements under the Regional Health Authorities Act, Chapter 2905. Neglect of oversight responsibilities. The Secretary of Health, although alerted to these irregularities, failed to act despite her obligations under Section 37(1) of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, Chapter 2503. In light of the above, I respectfully request that your office determine whether 1. Public funds were misappropriated, officers of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, including the board, breach their fiduciary duty, and 3. Any person or entity engaged in fraudulent or corrupt conduct during the procurement and execution of this contract. This is a matter of grave public concern and must be treated with the urgency and seriousness that it demands. So, at this point in time, the ball is in the court of the Tobago Regional Health Authority former board, because if what the secretary is saying is true, then the board has questions to answer that they awarded and proceeded with these variations without executive council approval, now costing you, the taxpayer, over $12 million in cost overruns. And if the secretary account is not true, then they owe it to themselves and to the rest of us to clear the air. And finally, I am calling on this matter, this scandalous, repugnant, and very alarming circumstances where a secretary would have presided over this matter, had many opportunities to treat with the oversight and the protection of the public interest, and failed, as in accordance with Section 37(1), to utilize her responsibility of direct control of the TRHA and the division. I am calling for the immediate resignation of the Secretary of Health on this matter, where $12 million in cost overruns, procuring ambulances after 2 years. After 2 years, we are in 2025, ambulance contract awarded in 2023, and up to now, we cannot see in rotation one of those ambulances, and the one that they attempted to put into rotation could not even power up a hill. Where are the ambulances? Where are our monies? This secretary needs to do the other honorable thing and resign. I thank you. And before I close, because I know the normal sympathizers, I want to say something to us all as Tobagonians, because we are Tobagonians first. And on this matter, we ought not to see party colors. We ought not to see blue, red, yellow, or green, or codes. This is a matter that affects every one of us. It treats with the lives of, it could be any one of us. It could be any one of us. And for those who I know probably busy saying the worst about me on social media at this time, I'm simply saying to you, the upholder is worse than the thief.
In terms of the Anti-Corruption Bureau letter that you penned, have you sent it already, and what is it in terms of the date? It's dated when?
So this letter is dated 3rd June 2025 and will be transmitted to directly by hand. So this will be delivered by hand on Friday. I will share with the media when it is actually delivered. Of course, we are restricted in terms of this would have to be delivered directly in Trinidad, and therefore the most appropriate time available to me is on Friday. So I will share with the media when it's actually delivered. As I said, it will be accompanied by some additional documentation that we believe will aid the investigative authorities in their investigation. As a matter of fact, we are also calling on the Office of the Procurement Regulator, and that application will be dropped off before Friday. We are also reporting this matter to the OPR because this is a matter of clear procurement breach. Because I can tell you, as someone who worked in procurement previously, that at every stage of procurement, you start with where the subject matter expert, whether it is a department, so in this situation, it would have been the Tobago Emergency Management Department, they would say exactly what they want as ambulances. So they would send to you the specs. And after they send to you the specs, you ought to have now a procurement process that involves whether it's an RFP or an RFQ, request for proposal or request for a quotation. Once those quotations come in, you would have an evaluation committee that would look at all the merits and demerits, the suitability, the track record, and the experience even of the supplier. Because the question we all have to ask ourselves, we have not yet delved into the competence of this supplier to supply ambulances. Because my information is based on what is available. We have to ask the question whether this supplier has ever supplied ambulances before. I can tell you the previous process in Tobago that went seamlessly, and the same people are at TRHA, which is confusing to me. The same people who were so successful in bringing in ambulances in 2015, purchased directly out of Miami. Imagine one of those ambulances, the very old ambulances of 2015, had to rescue the new ambulance of 2025 because the one that came in 2025 could not go up John Dial Hill. So the old ambulance of 2015, which we paid, as a matter of fact, $535,000 for one, and those were Ford ambulances, and we all know the reliability of Ford, that brand. So we paid in 2015 $535,000, but in 2025 we are paying 3 times that cost for ambulances to which we cannot use. And the only difference between 2015 and now is that we changed administration. And that is why I am reiterating and reinforcing my call for the secretary to resign, because she is the outlier. That is the only thing that has changed between the procurement of 2015 to the procurement of 2025, that we have in 2025 a new secretary. The manager at Thames remains the same manager. The procurement people remains the same procurement people. But yet in 2025, we have this absolute disaster. Any questions? So I think it was quite comprehensive, and therefore I encourage each and every one of us to stay guarded. There's more to come. There's more to come, because as I told you, the Tobago Regional Health Authority at this time is a graveyard for corruption. As a matter of fact, they are currently operating without a board. This is a situation we have experienced before under this administration. You will recall we had to bring a motion to really speed them up, hasten their footsteps in terms of implementing a board. And they are now without a board, managed by something called an oversight committee that has absolutely no grounding in law, and therefore that again presents us with a whole heap of legal impediments, because my understanding is that oversight committee continues to function as if they are a board, and that is illegal. That is again absolutely wrong. Thank you and have a blessed day.
So folks, we are back. I know some of you may have had the opportunity to listen to that particular press conference, but we thought it necessary to bring back that information to the forefront, as we have been prosecuting this matter over the last couple of weeks, and persons have in fact been calling and asking us, what next, what next? A number of initiatives would have come out of this. Let me reassure you, the public, that as recent as today, more information has come to hand, and we are going to be taking this to the very next level, and we are going to be coming back to you, the public. And that's why I did this preparation, so that we lay the foundation for the what comes next. And we are guaranteeing you that this minority will not stop until this information is it gets to where it has to get, and the necessary persons be held accountable, because we kept saying there is more in the mortar than the pestle. And based on what has now come to light, we have a guarantee, 100% indication, that there is definitely more in the mortar than than just the pestle. And so folks, we want you to continue following the Minority Report, continue to follow this particular situation. Much more is going to be revealed over the coming days. We are going to give the budget presentation and debate its time to unfold, as that is absolutely necessary to us here in Tobago. And when the dust settles with that, we go back to treating with the issues of malpractice, the issues of chaos, the issues of mismanagement, I say gross mismanagement, that we continue to experience right here in Tobago. Quite a lot is going to be shared in our next episode of the Minority Report. Let me encourage you to prepare yourselves from this week. Call your friend, call your neighbor, call a relative, your co-worker, and have them tune in to the next episode of the Minority Report, where we continue to provide you with the information that is necessary for you to make informed decisions. I want to say thank you for staying tuned. I want to say thank you for continuing to view. Thank you for your continued support. Almost 4 years on air. Wow. The Minority Report. That is definitely a hallmark. It's history making. And we could not have done it if we did not have the support of you, the listening and the viewing public. Continue to give us your support. We continue to covet your prayers as we continue to prosecute. We continue to hold accountable. We continue, even in many instances, to provide education to members of the public with respect to different topics, particular issues. So folks, we really want to thank you for your patience with us. And we pray that as we continue to do what has been mandated by the public in terms of the rules and functions of the minority, that you continue to lend us your support, overwhelming even as it may be. We really, really appreciate you. I want to say good night to the minority leader and the minority councillor who are presently heavy into their preparations for Thursday's budget debate. Quite a lot, again, is going to be revealed in that particular debate. Let me encourage those of you who would have the time to tune in on Thursday as the House kicks off the budget debate and the minority leader and minority councillor go in with information that will shock all of Tobago on many, many points as we present and show that this administration has consistently received more allocation than previous administrations and yet still have been able to do significantly less, as they continue to show a number of the projects that have been listed in even last year's budget presentation, even in things that they would have identified in the debate and to date have never borne fruit, yet still they are listed as accomplishments. So we're going to see a whole lot exposed in this budget debate on Thursday. Tune in, do not miss it. This concerns your future and the future of your children. So thank you very much. Let's keep encouraging each other, especially in this month of men's mental health, and let's continue to check in on those who are around us, men and boys, and let's expand that check-in to everyone. If you have a friend, you have a relative that you haven't seen for a day, 2 days, a week, or however long, take up the phone, send them a message. Take up the phone, give them a call. And if you have the time, jump in your vehicle and go to their home and just sit and have a conversation with them. Check up on them and see how they're going. I'm Marlon David, your host of the Minority Report, saying have a wonderful evening and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.